Hi, this is Cheryl Gallant, your Conservative Member of Parliament for the truth-seeking riding of Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke. Last week, we talked about the need for a solid footing upon which to build a foundation for economic growth and prosperity. That footing was sound financial decision-making. Now, footing must have a rock-solid base. That rock-solid base is the ability to keep a country's population safe and secure from forces seeking to do it harm. For those of you who tune into our Standing Committee on National Defense, it comes as no surprise that Canada is naked against threats to our Arctic region. If anything demonstrates the decrepit state of our military, it's the testimony that Canada could not intercept one of the 4 balloons floating over the Yukon because our fighter jets couldn't get off the ground due to freezing rain. Pathetic, but reality. At one time, Canada took threats emerging from the Arctic front very seriously. The Airborne Regiment was stood up as a rapid response, independent brigade command to counter incursions into the Canadian Arctic. During the Cold War between the United States and the former Soviet Union, Canada and the United States joined forces and formed NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, back in 1958. It was under this alliance that action was taken to down the balloon-type airships flying unauthorized through North American airspace. The Arctic is easy to ignore if you don't have any relatives up there or if your work doesn't involve it. The Scandinavian countries and Russia have always taken an active interest in the Arctic. Now, even the People's Republic of China, with its insatiable hunger for fuel and minerals, calls itself a near-Arctic nation. The communist regime in Beijing has a research station in the Canadian Arctic. That communist regime draws no demarcation between domestic, industrial, academic, or military interests. They are all fused into one common war machine. Part of that communist military machine is already entrenched in the Canadian Arctic. Canada's surveillance aircraft are at the end of their lifespans with no plan to replace them. Satellites are also nearing the end of their service lives and currently don't even meet the surveillance needs. RadarSat constellation mission satellites are currently used at full capacity and cannot fulfill all demands made by the federal organizations for radar imagery of Canadian territory. We're only going to get another 3 years out of those, with nothing even scheduled to replace them for another decade. A decade of blindness. Even if we had the ships and the aircraft, the infrastructure projects in the north to support them are deficient and behind schedule. After the communist regime in Beijing's February 2023 incursion over American and North American territory, dual-purpose technologies, Chinese monitoring buoys in the Arctic, were retrieved by the Canadian Armed Forces. When asked the number of buoys recovered and the purpose of those buoys in our Arctic, our defense minister stated, quote, "The buoys in Canadian waters were interdicted and retrieved for operational security reasons and in an effort not to provide an adversarial advantage. I will say no more." End quote. Beneath the water surface, Canada currently has no capability to detect submarines or underwater drones or any other type of submersible systems operating in the Arctic Ocean. Canada has a grand total of 4 submarines to patrol off 3 Canadian coasts and participate in missions abroad. The challenge is that at any one point in time, we're lucky to have 1 available for taskings due to the maintenance cycles. The United States has 68 submarines, China 79, Russia 64, and North Korea 36. Canada 4. Unfortunately, Trudeau and his Disney Plus-less finance minister do not take the security and defense of Canada seriously. They never have. Their only real mission is a transformational change in the way our nation operates. Retired Vice Admiral Norman was the only naval project manager to deliver a ship on budget and on time. This is what he had to say, quote, "Our way of life is in jeopardy," end quote. The truth is out there. It is not even that far. The truth lies just across the street in the building formerly known as the Langevin Block. That is why Conservatives are asking for the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff to appear before committee. It's also why the Liberals are filibustering. We want the truth, and the Liberals are desperate to prevent the truth from coming out. The facts as they stand are damning. The Liberal Party was warned about communists funneling cash to candidates. The Prime Minister's office was informed of CSIS concerns about a specific Liberal candidate. The Prime Minister's office, in his refusal to answer, is an answer in and of itself. The government knew and did nothing. The only matter left in question is, why did they do nothing? The best case scenario is they thought informing Canadians would make them look bad. Many Liberals still blame the RCMP for announcing an investigation into the finance minister during the 2006 election. It's a comforting fantasy Liberals like to tell themselves so they don't have to admit they lost, because the Liberal government had funneled money to ad agencies for little or no work other than to pass the cash back to the Liberal Party. In this best case scenario, the Prime Minister simply believed himself immune to foreign influences, so why should he let a few bad apples spoil his re-election chance? Of course, the Liberals do not want to admit they put their partisan interests ahead of the national interests, so they lie and hide the truth. But there's another explanation. The worst case scenario is that they put the interests of an authoritarian communist regime ahead of the national interest for short-term partisan gain. The truth lies somewhere between the best case and the worst case. Having the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff testify is both imperative and insufficient. We've seen from the Liberal filibuster that they really don't want the whole truth revealed. We can only get the truth with an independent public inquiry led by someone all parties agree to. The Liberals claim they've launched multiple avenues of investigation to get to the truth. That's a lie, and much of the media was happy to spread it. Trudeau says he's asked the National Security and Intelligence Review Agency, NSIRA for short, to look back into the communist interference. What the Liberals and the media won't mention is that every member of the review board was appointed by this Prime Minister. And the Secretariat is appointed by the Prime Minister. And best of all, The mandate for NSRA is to investigate the actions of our security and intelligence agencies. No one's questioning the actions of CSIS, no one but the Liberals. And just in case there was a risk, NSRA could reveal any uncomfortable truths. Trudeau went and ordered NSRA to investigate the Canada Revenue Agency for alleged anti-Muslim bigotry based on documents the RCMP claims are fake. After calling for a fake review by NSRA, the Prime Minister said he was asking the secret National Security Committee of Parliamentarians to investigate. Unfortunately for Trudeau, 2 days after he called on this secret committee to investigate, Global News reported on an unredacted document produced by the secret committee, which confirms the government was aware of communist funding and did nothing. The secret committee already reviewed the matter. They reported to the Prime Minister that there was a communist network funding Liberals and recommended he take action. Those recommendations were ignored. So Trudeau lied about NSRA investigating communist interference. He lied about the secret committee. Then Trudeau said he would appoint an independent advisor to review his government instead of appointing someone independent, impartial. Trudeau picked a lifelong Trudeau family friend. David Johnston was one of Canada's respected Governor-Generals. If you look up eminent Canadian in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of David Johnston, which is why it's all the more disappointing that he would take the position given the perception of conflicts of interest from his time with the Trudeau Foundation and his role leading the controversial debate commission. Should David Johnston return with anything less than a recommendation for an open and transparent public inquiry led by someone agreed to by all parties, it'll be completely reasonable for Canadians to ask if the fix was in, just like in the Rouleau Commission. Live from Ottawa, this is Cheryl Gallant. How's it?